Bullshit.
Pretend for a moment we've entered a parallel universe, free of bullshit and full of bold solutions. That's what the No BS Show is all about. I'm your host, Dave Mastovich. Our guest today is Becky Stapleton of S&T Bank. But first, let's cut the bullshit. Since less is more in both design and writing, and since we as a society scan quickly rather than read, words matter as much as ever. Yet we've reduced the value of some and clouded the meaning of others. Ultimate is supposed to mean the best imaginable of its kind. A student used it as an example in my class this week of horrible messaging by a restaurant because they featured ultimate nachos that barely filled the plate. Value is to describe the importance or usefulness of something, yet it's often used to describe something that is cheaper and offers you less of it. The dynamic duo of inaccurate descriptors, exceptional to mean outstanding, and unique, unlike anything else, rarely describes something outstanding or unlike anything else. Then there's the triumvirate of meaningless inaccuracies. Literally, honestly, absolutely. I literally can't honestly explain how those words absolutely are used inappropriately. Well, actually, I can. They aren't. Awesome. Right. You don't have to misuse these words to communicate in a memorable way. Don't take the lazy way out. Instead, say what you really mean. Choose your words as if they matter, because they do. Unbelievable. Nah, doable. The No BS Show is brought to you by Audible.com. Get a free audiobook download and 30-day free trial at audibletrial.com/nobs. Try a book like The Girl with the Lower Back Tattoo by Amy Schumer. You can download it for free today. Go to audibletrial.com/nobs. Again, that's audibletrial.com/nobs for your free audiobook. Over 180,000 titles to choose from for your iPhone, Android, Kindle, or MP3 player. Becky Stapleton is Senior Executive Vice President and Chief Banking Officer for S&T Bank, one of the largest banks in Pennsylvania. She's the key driver of the strategic plan and direction of the retail, marketing, and insurance divisions within the bank. Becky, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Dave. Glad to be here.
We're happy to have you coming in from Indiana, PA today and battling all the crazy traffic with our Liberty Bridge closed and all the students back to school, both college and high school. So we're happy you were able to get in here from the great area of Indiana. We're two IUP grads and we're going to have a lot of fun. Let's start by having you walk through your educational background, both your educational background and your career journey.
Oh, sure. I can do that. I guess I would want to start way back when in good old Indiana, Pennsylvania, born and raised. I had 4 older brothers and a younger sister. And I often mention that because they kind of molded me into what I am. Got some tough love from 4 older brothers and real compassion and caring from my younger sister. She was born with cystic fibrosis. And so, just had to live with a disease, horrible disease for a long, long time. I was the first generation college grad in my family, and my sister then graduated as well from IUP, proud graduate of IUP. Political science and economics actually is my background. Went on for a master's degree at Indiana University in Bloomington, Indiana.
So you
kind of
really,
like that
really
Indiana
like that
name.
Indiana name.
I do. And my master's in public affairs. And all set to go to the state of Illinois to be a budget analyst for the state, and had some family situations. My mother and sister became ill and decided that I needed to be back in town. Went to the political science department and said, look, I don't know how long I'm going to be here. What's going on? Is there some job that I can take even on a part-time basis so that I'm in town and around my family? And the chair of the department, who I had a great relationship with when I was at IUP, kind of flippantly said, well, can you teach American politics? And I said, yeah, I think I can do that. And he said, no, in all seriousness, I need somebody to do that. I'm out on medical leave. Or he's out on medical leave, and I can't find anybody. And it's 50 students. Can you do it? Yeah, sure. Long story short, I did that for a couple of years, but was in town a little longer than I had anticipated. In the meantime, fell in love and decided that I wanted to stay. So I was looking for a full-time position in town. S&T Bank had an opening for training manager. They were looking for somebody who had some financial background, budgeting skills, a little knowledge of banking, but also someone who had some stand-up skills. So I applied, actually got to and accepted the position, offered and accepted it, and really had the pleasure of building that training department from ground up. It was a new initiative. I think they had maybe 250, 300 employees at the time. And then just through my tenure there, grabbed on to different projects along the way. Recruitment ended up coming over to me, performance evaluations, organizational development, employee opinion surveys, things like that. Very cultural aspects of the company, special projects. And in 2008, the person who was the head of HR decided to leave. She moved out of the area, and the position was offered to me. So I was the head of HR and employee communications from 2008 to 2015. And what happened in the summer of 2014, we had an open position. They were looking to head up the retail division, wealth division, insurance potentially. And we were having some difficulty filling the position. And we just kept going round and round and roundabout. And one morning, our president and CEO said, "Hey, do you have a couple minutes?" So I said, "Sure." So I went in his office and he said, "Hey, I think I found the perfect person for the position." I'm like, "Well, where in the heck did you find somebody? We were hitting roadblocks." And he looked at me and he said, I think it's you." And, and people don't surprise me very much, but he certainly surprised me. And, after thinking about it for a few days, I said, "You know what, I've got probably 10 to 15 years more with this company. Did I want to challenge myself to do something different?" That was always something that I prided myself in. I'm a quick learner and certainly have fresh opinions on things and challenge the status quo. And so I went back to him a couple of days later and I said, "I'm all in, let's go." And so through the last year and a half to 2 years, that's what I've been doing. So the head of retail administration reports into me, the head of marketing reports into me, and the head of our insurance division reports into me. For a short time, I worked with the wealth management division as well, because we were searching for some permanent solutions in that area as well. So that's the story. It's
a great story, Becky Stapleton. And so we're going to go back because there's so many things to touch on there. So I guess the first is, so you end up going to IUP, and then you decide to go to Indiana and Bloomington for your master's. Talk about that.
Yeah. When I graduated from IUP, I had always thought I wanted to go on for my master's and perhaps my doctorate. So I was looking for programs in that public administration arena. IU is and has been for probably 50 plus years one of the top 4 schools in the country for their public administration, public affairs program. So I applied, didn't know a whole lot about the school overall other than it was ranked pretty high. Applied, was accepted, was kind of struggling to figure out how I was going to pay for that education, and picked up the phone. I don't even understand how I did it, but I picked up the phone and said, "I was accepted here. It sounds like a great school. I'm just not sure how I can pay for it. Is there anything else you can do for me?" And I had gotten some aid, some scholarship money from them in their first draft. And I said, "I think I can make a difference for you, and I'm sure I'll get a great education." About a week later, in the mail, I got a revised offer letter and got a full scholarship and a graduate assistantship. So I said, I'm all in, let's go. And drove off to Bloomington, Indiana, and got a great education and really loved my experience there and broadened what I already had in my bag of tricks.
The lesson is the courage to ask.
Yeah.
What's the worst that could have happened?
I think growing up with very, very humble roots made me get to a point where I said, I don't really have any other options, so why not? So I asked.
Great story. So being a basketball guy, I have to ask, did you happen to run into Bobby Knight while you were there at all?
I did. He was in his heyday, of course, at IU. And I have the big claim to fame of being at the game where he threw the infamous chair across the court.
Oh, we have to put that on the show notes, the video of that. You were at that game.
I was at the game. We had tickets, and I think as students you got 8 games, and they kind of rotated around the arena. And for that game in particular, we had some of the best seats that we had. And I would tell you, when you think about it today, I think, oh man, how could he have done that? But in the heat of the moment, when we saw it, the place erupted. We were playing Purdue, I think, which is one of the IU's biggest rivals. And the place just went nuts. And, it worked. They ended up coming back and winning the doggone game. But it was kind of fun to be there. I'm not sure it's as politically correct anymore to do something like that, but it was fun.
So was Isaiah there when you were there?
No, he wasn't. It was Steve Alford days.
Okay.
That's the one I remember off the top of my head. Keith Smart, I think.
Yeah.
As well.
Yeah. Wow.
That's really digging
Smart.
deep.
Yeah, Smart made the shot
at the end
in the national championship game.
Yep. And I was already gone 1 year from IU at that time, but I of course watched that championship game. That was
so
awesome.
did you happen to meet Steve Alford's girlfriend who would pass some rebound for him when he shot 500 shots a day?
No, I didn't. But I tell you what, his routine was phenomenal. You just like clockwork, he did the same motion every time he got up at the foul line, and his stats proved it.
Yes. Yeah, he was really controversial when they selected him. They didn't select him. The Pacers didn't select him. They selected Reggie Miller. And I can still remember reading and watching footage of them booing because they wanted to take Alford. And Reggie Miller turned out to be way better.
Yeah, at the end of the day, that was probably a good choice.
Yeah,
but, he's
definitely
gone on to be pretty successful in
really
coaching.
Really good coach. Seems like a good man of character. You then come back for family issues, and you, again, a second time, you make a major courageous thing that a lot of people just don't do. You went back to IUP, talked to the department chair, the dean, and just said, what can you do? Mm-hmm.
Yeah, what do you know of? And I'm here. Just wanted to see if they had any contacts. What are you hearing? What's going on? Do you have any jobs available that you are aware of? I never imagined that he would say, well, could you teach American politics? And it was, I think, courageous at that time to say, you know what, I can do that. I trusted my intelligence enough. I trusted my work ethic enough that I would put my heart and soul into whatever I would do.
The No BS Marketing Podcast with Dave Mastovich is brought to you by Mass Solutions. Put our 3-step No BS process to work for you. Visit masssolutions.biz today to take your marketing to another level. It's all about bold solutions, no BS.
Tell me this: is the perception true that the academicians in politics have the liberal bent? How did you go about trying to be unbiased with the students teaching politics?
Yeah, it was interesting. I was very bent on not showing any of my political persuasion in the classroom. And I always did lots of fun things in the classroom and had dialogue first and foremost about what was going on in the world. And so many times the students would say, well, how do you feel about that? Or what's your take on it? And I would always kind of egg them on a little bit and say, well, what do you think I would say? And they really would not know. That was how dead even I was and trying to not show my political persuasion. I just thought that was the right thing to do. I certainly have a bent, but I wanted folks to form their own opinions and not rely on what I said to help guide them, because maybe that wasn't right for them. Maybe they didn't believe the same thing I did. But they would always try to get me. And at the end of the semester, I would come clean and say, okay, so here's my view and here's where I lean. And oftentimes they were surprised. They just didn't see it.
It's so long ago since I had a political class, and I'm going a little bit off tangent, but it does tie to messaging. I know it's a long time ago, but do you recall, how are those courses structured? Do they have like a chapter on conservatism, a chapter on liberalism, a chapter on all the different ways? Is that
typically not until you get into more of upper level classes, but a general American politics book will start with the three branches of government and probably the history behind how the Constitution was formed and Declaration of Independence and the Federalist letters and papers and so forth. But where they talked most about the political persuasions were in maybe a chapter or two devoted to the political parties. And that's where you captured that in a general American politics course. When you had upper level courses, you might have had one course only on political parties or campaigns or elections or things like that. But generally speaking, I was forced to have it come alive beyond what that chapter said. So we would do little mini political debates, and my mantra was come to class. Don't skip a class. You're going to be more successful. You're going to get a C. You're at minimum if you just come and participate. And bottom line is you're going to learn a whole lot more. And I engaged the classroom a lot. We did a lot of exercises and group projects, and oftentimes I was teaching a 6 to 9 class, which is sort of unheard of anymore. But we'd take a break, and I'd say, I'm giving you a break, but if you don't come back, you're going to pay for it, because we're going to do a group exercise, and you're going to get some credit for being here. And if you're not, you won't get those credits, and they're easy to get.
It's the No BS Marketing Show. I'm your host, Dave Mastovich. That's our guest, Becky Stapleton, Chief Banking Officer at S&T Bank, talking about her background. Ended up becoming friends with Bobby Knight in Bloomington, Indiana, when she got her master's at a prestigious program. Since it is that time of year, it's after Labor Day, and we're now down the home stretch. Let's just talk a little bit from a messaging standpoint, since I didn't realize I had a jewel here as far as a political policy guru, having taught it at Indiana University of Pennsylvania. Let's just talk messaging, not personal preference. How do you feel from a messaging standpoint it's gone with, say, Hillary Clinton and Donald Trump?
Well, let's see. Messaging, I think Donald Trump's message is one of, I'm going to put something out there that no one has seen before. It's unique. It's memorable, certainly. I think the country was ripe for something like that. I think his messaging got probably a little too intense, and people started to back off of it. He had messaging that didn't necessarily have some data and some proof and stats and how to execute on some of his stances. And I think that's probably why he has changed campaign managers. It seems like there's a little bit of a softer approach to what he's saying. I sense that he's using a teleprompter a little bit more to manage his message, manage his behavior, manage his tone.
He's
not sure if it's a little too late.
It's possibly a little too late because of lack of message discipline. There was just so inconsistent and not understanding how to drive a news cycle. He drives the news cycle away from what he wants. and he's not doing it intentionally. Like he'll have a little bit of momentum, then he'll just throw a little blurb out that's just no discipline. You shouldn't have said that blurb. So then that blurb takes 2 news cycles away from him that he might have gone and won.
Yeah, he takes a couple of steps backwards and he just really can't help himself.
He can't.
From doing that.
I'm not so sure he wanted to win. I don't know that I'm not so sure he even thought he'd win the primaries. I think that he did it because he felt it was a noble thing and a great PR opportunity for him. And,
Maybe.
And then he started winning.
Yeah, he did. And he started winning. And I think his message of change is probably something that the country was ready for. It just kind of got jumbled up in the process. Sure. And in Hillary's stance, she's a little mechanical. Probably don't see the passion in her that I think she probably has. She's doggone bright and smart and certainly a policy person. I think for a while she backed off of going head to head with Mr. Trump. I think she's doing more of that. What I don't want her to do if she's going to win the election is to almost emulate his style. I think she needs to combat him, but do it in a way that is polished, informative, shows discipline, but doesn't shy away from putting bullet holes in his message. Donald Trump has been masterful at going after 1 or 2 things that Hillary Clinton has done, and they've worked. The email scandal and some of the silver spoon issues, I think, have clouded the Hillary Clinton campaign.
Sure. From a messaging standpoint, this is like fun for me because if you go back, I'm talking to someone that has this detailed way more than me probably from the background, but if you go back through the past, say, 30 years, 35 years of presidential campaigns, the winning message person won every single time. In 92, change was what Bill Clinton ran on. And then you look at Romney, I think fumbled a lot of opportunities. His messaging, I think, was poor. And I'm not even talking about who I like or dislike. I'm just stating purely as a messaging person, I can look at it and say, boy, Romney fumbled that. He had an opportunity. This one, I think they've both been poor at the messaging. One, because it's just not her instinct and ability. Yeah. The other, who I think can be incredibly charismatic, just doesn't have the discipline. So it's really an interesting dynamic for me as a marketer. I just think
it's been certainly the most lively campaign that I've ever lived through. And, someone last night who I was having dinner with said, don't quote me on the days, but I think she said, there's only 65 days left. I can't wait until it's over.
Yes.
I think that's where people are right now. They're like, man, I wish I could just vote tomorrow and get it over with. I'm not going to get anything else new.
And because it's the first time in our generation that neither candidate was liked. Really. Yeah. If you think about it, neither candidate has a passionate, broad following. Trump has a small segment that's very passionate, but then he has an equally sized segment in his own party that doesn't like him. But if you go back and look, like when Obama in 2008, there was this surge for Obama. In 92 with Clinton. In 2000, even though it was a disputed election, W came out after the convention and just had this broad appeal. And Reagan had an amazing broad appeal. It's just there's no one that neither of the two are really liked.
Yeah, and I hear that often. I don't like this one, but I don't really like the alternative.
Yes.
And so people are just kind of in limbo, if you will. And I'm not sure how that will bode well when they actually go in and darken the circle or, pull the lever.
Messaging is a big piece of politics. And with Becky Stapleton, who has the master's in public affairs from Indiana Bloomington and then taught political science and other things at IUP right out of the master's program. So, Becky, who are your mentors other than your family members, and how have they impacted you?
I have a couple. First of all, when I was at IUP, I paid for my own education. I had to work 25, 30 hours a week. And I worked for a doctor, a pediatrician in town, Dr. Weiner, Frank Weiner. He was kind of like a second dad to me, as it turns out. But he was an incredible mentor. What I liked about him so much is that he just gave me things to do that I didn't even know that I could do. And he believed in me. I would go there. I would usually schedule my classes from 8 to 1, and then I would work from 2 to 5, 2 to 6. Of course, during the flu season, it was 2 to 8, 2 to 9. He would send his nurses and his regular receptionist, admin staff home at 5, 6 o'clock. And so it was just the two of us working through the evenings. He would go, see the patients. I would check them out. I did insurance billing. I pretty much did whatever he needed me to do. So he really entrusted me. He believed in me. He would allow me to do things that, I didn't ever think I had experience to do. And, really made me grow as a person. My first boss at S&T Bank, who was the head of HR at the time, Barry Scott, what I really liked about him, he was an incredible mentor for me. He trusted me, kind of let me do what I thought needed to be done in the department, gave me some free rein, pulled me in when I needed to be pulled in. But what I really liked about him is he had incredible writing skills. And so when I would prepare something to be distributed in our office mail, on email, et cetera, he would look it over. And the first couple of times, the red pencil came out just like a very experienced English teacher, and he would rewrite it. And the first couple of times I got it back, I'm like, man, I didn't think I was that bad of a writer. But what he taught me was concise writing skills. To manage the message, to really craft it so that people would read it and understand it, and not be burdened by having written too much either. And so he was good. And then my last boss before I took on this role was a guy named Ed Hawk, and he's an incredible mentor to a lot of people at the bank. But he's he's since retired, but he was a long tenured employee. And what I liked about him in particular, and what I learned from him the most, was he would bounce stuff off of me. I was a little bit of a check for him, and what that showed me was that I probably have people on my staff who I can bounce things off of and ask opinions of, and I don't have to have all the answers. And I might have a good idea of what I need to do, or how to say something, or how to write something, or how to execute on something. But sometimes it's good to, kind of sit back before you plunge right in and do something, and do a little bit of a reality check and make sure that it's the right path that you want to go on. And something he used to always say is, well, I want you to noodle on something. And that just meant, think about this, give me the pros and cons, make sure I've got the right head. I'm not going to tell you where my head is, but let's talk tomorrow and give me your 2 cents. And that was an invaluable skill that I learned from him. So those are 3 people that come to mind pretty quickly, I think.
It's excellent to have multiple mentors and to recognize them. So they each brought similar, but yet each brought their own distinct training, mentoring, and coaching.
Mm-hmm. I agree. Yeah. That's probably why I like medicine, because of growing up in that field. And I always demand good writing skills from my staff. And I think probably that management style of getting everyone's opinion, making sure that they're valued and they're asked about what we should do, makes them feel involved and engaged.
Hear more of my interview with Becky Stapleton of S&T Bank in part 2